You're listening to an episode of the Churchill Storywork Project about Indigenous knowledge of human polar bear coexistence. This is a storywork research project where we explore Indigenous knowledge through storytelling with Inuit, Métis, Syeside Dene, and Swampy Cree knowledge holders in Churchill, Manitoba, Canada. In addition to producing academic research about Indigenous community members' knowledge of coexistence, we also created podcasts in the voices of the knowledge holders themselves. We primarily created the podcast by and for the community. However, we hope others learn from and enjoy them as well. My name is KT Miller, and this work was part of my Master's in Interdisciplinary Studies at Royal Roads University. I had the great honor of working with Cree elder Georgina Berg as a co-researcher on this project. We met over a cup of tea, and as they say, the rest is history. The Indigenous Knowledge Keepers of Churchill provided guidance and advice throughout all phases of this research, beginning with research design all the way through the dissemination of results. Knowledge holder and graphic designer Nikia McIver made significant intellectual and graphic contributions to this work, and if you haven't checked out the timeline on our website or in our supplementary material, it is Nikia's artistic and intellectual creation, and it is amazing. I also want to acknowledge and thank my supervisors, Dr. Michael Lickers, who is an Indigenous scholar in residence at Royal Roads University, and importantly suggested I use the Indigenous method of storytelling in this work. And Dr. Dominique Henry, a research scientist with Environment and Climate Change Canada, who provided support and guidance through the technical and emotional journey of this project. We are also very grateful to Polar Bears International and Environment and Climate Change Canada who funded this research. More information about this research can be found at churchillpolarbearcoexistence.com. This series includes 4 podcast episodes that explore 4 different time periods: the distant past, prior to the relocation of Indigenous people to present-day Churchill; the past, which was sort of the transition from more of a traditional lifestyle to a wage economy; the present, which is defined in our research as the tourism era; and the future. In episode 2, which we define by this project as 1957 to 2005, the era of the fur trade came to an end and a new era of tourism began. Knowledge holders recalled the military shot a lot of polar bears and kept the hides, hanging them on their walls or using them as rugs. They also recalled seeing large numbers of bears eating burning garbage at the open dump. Concurrently, tourism began and polar bears started to become more valuable alive than dead. In 2005, the open dump was closed and moved inside an old military warehouse, known locally by the name of L5. Once the military left and the open dump closed, people started to see a lot more polar bears coming through town. Most contributors' first memory of a polar bear occurred during this time period, outside of a cabin at the flats, by a house in town, or at the dump. Even though all knowledge holders had encountered polar bears many times, they did not speak of polar bears fearfully, but rather with respect, and sometimes even humor and joy. We hope you learn from and enjoy episode 2 of our podcast series.
Yeah, they killed off that year.
Oh, 70s? The 70s?
Yeah, that was.
They shot 38 that time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they were averaging, I think, about 20, 22, maybe 38, and then.
Because old Jimmy Spencer skinning them, and then
Yeah.
he got my dad to help him, and
Yeah.
then I went with my dad that time.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting $40 to skin one bear.
Wow, good then. Good money those days.
That was a lot of skinning that time.
Yeah.
The old Bay House, that's the Northern Stores manager's place. That used to be behind the store there.
Yeah.
And I remember there was 2 cubs in there, in the porch, in a cage. Remember that?
Yep.
And the mother's skin was on top, I think, eh?
That
We'd
was
go in there after school, and the little cubs would come up to you, but I don't know how long they were there, a couple days or I can't, maybe longer than that. But they kept them in the porch there in a cage.
Oh, the trap line started when he retired, or just about retiring, and his uncle, or my uncle Jim, that was his brother, my dad's brother. He told my dad there was trap line 11 opening up, and he knew my dad was going to retire soon. So, but it wasn't to make a living on trapping. It's just that when he left York, that's what he did, and when he came here, he was already into his like 50s, you know. When he moved here, so he did a lot of stuff on the land, and I guess having young kids, that's what I'm thinking now anyway. That you know he liked to trap, and he dragged us along and showed us that. But it wasn't for money, that's for sure. We did barren land. It's get the odd fox and odd beaver, but that's what that was all about.
Right? And so Morris and I got looking at the idea of taking people out there. So we just, I guess, transitioned it, I guess, right, in a sense to do that. And so basically you're transitioning a trap line to, in this case, viewing mothers and cubs in February, March. So it's using the tool in the other way, right?
So at the time too, the fuel price really dropped. Wasn't that good. And conservation said any buildings that you could use on the trap lines, not just us, everybody, all the trap line owners, you could somehow use it to your advantage, being whatever. So just so I used to travel from here to All River, and then used to haul fuel for the following year. I used to come across mother and cub tracks that time of year in March. And of course the tourism started with the bear issue, and that's when we hooked up and we thought we'd give it a try. Because they were there, but we weren't sure. You know, we knew it wasn't easy.
Over time it's a little different, eh? Morris and I are doing something different with bears on a trap line, eh? You're showcasing them. You know, so that's different, isn't it, eh? You go from one generation to the next, you know. You're trapping in a different way if you think about it.
Well, I think when the Chartiers started doing polar bear tours out west, and then Len Smith started the tundra buggy and all that stuff, then conservation became to the forefront, right? And our dump was a big conservation thing, right? Like back in those days, they'd go paint a great big green 13 on the bear and all that stuff, eh? And all the tourists used to go to the dump to see the bears, and you know, it wasn't very good for tourism. Well, one of my first memories is, you know, they were always around town when we were growing up, and polar bear conservation at the time was killing polar bears, because they used to say, I remember listening to the radio way back in the day, and they'd say, that was the 21st polar bear shot in Churchill, and if you want to see it, go run down to the RCMP garage, and the bear would be splayed out on the floor in there, and you could go see a dead polar bear.
Because a lot of people say that the military would take polar bear hides home
Interesting.
when they left here.
Uh-huh.
And that's probably why
Yeah, they had
we
them
don't
on their
remember a lot of bears.
I think it was just I think it might have been the military. Because you hear stories of those guys killing bears, eh?
I used to hear those stories too, like when a big shot from the army, it was time to move on, you take a hide with them.
But in those days, you know, there was 5,000 people here. You have to understand, there wasn't too many polar bear encounters in those days when the military was here. Every major and every colonel went home with a polar bear rug.
Yeah.
We had an actual pit of garbage that was constantly being burned, and if you wanted to see a bear, that's where you went. And it wasn't really good for pictures. When I was younger, I remember they were just black. So you maybe just like almost look like panda bears sometimes, because they were just covered in charcoal and soot and
numbers.
singed hair. Yeah, and that's when they used to actually literally paint a great big huge number on their butts. And I think it was work with Dan Gervich and that team, when they started out, that they wanted that stopped. He's saying, we're trying to bring guests here to view them, and it's not a pretty picture.
Well, if you're going to go throw out garbage or whatever, you'd always have to look around. Sometimes you, more so as a teenager, just going to go look for bears, drive around. That's pretty much where all the bears were. It's like the dump kept in there.
We'd go there, like, that was our family drive, was to go see the bears.
There was still like a big fire pit that was pretty much constantly burning. It kind of gives me like Scar from The Lion King.
Yeah, that, exactly like that, yeah.
It's weird, and but this is like, even going out with my friends as teenagers, like, and we all started driving, and we had like different people's parents' vehicles, and going out there and like having the bears just like come crawling up out of that dump with the fire going in the background. It really gave like
I
a,
feel like black.
I was like a teenager, so I'm like, oh man, that's like Scar from The Lion King.
I just love that visual.
But that's pretty accurate, about how it was.
And just like every time we'd go to the dump, I like in my head as a kid, I could just like picture like fires there all the time and dirty bears, and every time you would go there you would see a bear, if not like 5 of them, and it would be like a challenge to just get out of your car and throw garbage. And I think that's probably my earliest memory, and I don't think I was ever really scared. I think just like being that young, being exposed to bears, it was kind of just normal to go to the dump and see bears there. Like, I didn't really know anything different.
I think the most I've ever counted at the dump one time was about 33 bears.
Yeah, there's lots.
Yeah, the dump was huge. Like, I remember going for a ride at night and seeing anywhere from 10 to 15 bears on the road, no problem.
One time too, I went to throw my garbage out. I was with my daughter and Shirley. And then got to the dump and I got out of the truck, took my garbage out. And I was walking towards the garbage, how it was piled. And, just throw it over. And then I was walking there, not even looking around, and then honk, 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 they were tooting at me. Vivian yelled out the window, Mom, there's a bear coming over there. It was just, coming over one of those smoky, whatever, the pile, coming over, and then I happened to look up, I just dropped my garbage ran back. Oh, that's so... And we were just laughing. We weren't scared or anything. Didn't expect it. Oh, goodness. There's a lot.
And count how many, Sometimes there'd be 16, and sometimes somebody would say, oh, there was like 40 out there. It was always like everybody would count and see who had the highest number of bears they seen.
And I remember Mom made artwork. She used to make bears with numbers on them. So one Christmas we got 1 to 5. It's like, what? She had 5 kids. So mine had a 2 on it. It's like, what? She had a garbage can, and it's like only local from back in the day would understand that.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of people did think because of the garbage dump. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you never know. Maybe the army was involved some way too. Maybe they were leaving food for them or whatever, and they got it, because once they find that root where they're not going to forget. Mm-hmm. They'll come back to the same spot.
Mm-hmm. It really slowed down after they shot 38. Yeah. Because of course you never had to control the bears. I guess that was the only thing they had because they didn't have the bear gel yet. Yeah. So you got this problem now, so what can you do? Because they were really adapted to man now. They were coming in.
I think that's when the Polar Bear Alert program came together. That was the start of it.
There's one thing about those bears, like all those years they went to the dump here. As soon as that ice freezes, from the youngest bear to the oldest bear, there's no garbage bag that will hold them. Once the ice freezes, They must do well out there too. That time of year comes, they're gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
They know what it's all about out there.
Yeah.
It must be easy for them, I think. I don't know it. It must be.
Gotta be then.
Because they go right away.
Look at our restaurants open, let's go.
Yeah. And you think about it, they get one seal. That's lots.
But the little ones, they have a good time with that one, yeah. And the foxes chase them around, eat their scraps and that.
So they do well out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like for the seals, like I think they come here more for the seals, in the spring. Because that's what they live on, eh? But like, I watch when the seals in the springtime, I never ever seen a bear, like. But Bobby was saying that he's seen one sneaking up to the seal hole. Yeah, so I guess they do, like. Maybe they're sneaking, they do it at night, I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, they seem to like to roam around at night.
Yeah.
And I know where there's dens all the way up the river. I know where there's at least 5 dens over the years. When you drive up there, when the bank erodes after those forest fires and stuff, you can see those holes, where they are. So you always got to be aware. Even I've seen bears 60 miles up the river. They're all over this country. And I've seen them in every month of the year.
Well, even in the 50s, in that school holidays, 4 or 5 of us way down there, almost a camp along the rocks. No bears or nothing. Nothing. We'd eat caplings. I don't know, pale clean as much as we could, boil them up a little bit there, or a nice flat rock, fry them on there. Oh yeah, me, John, Bernard, Dan, Bones, a whole bunch of us. All day long we'd be gone.
Yeah, that's the way it was. You run around and play all over the place, and that's right. I don't remember being.
There wasn't that many bears then.
No.
Because I think it was the military that was keeping them at bay, eh?
Could be.
Yes.
Just wondering,
And then all of a sudden, when the military starts leaving, all of a sudden that fence goes down and then the bears are coming through.
But the rocks were the place to go play.
And it sounds like people didn't really have problems with
Well,
bears.
and I'm thinking the reason why we didn't have problems is because we had a dump.
As a youngster, walking down the flats every night, walking through the willows, we weren't afraid of that. That was our trail.
And now you would never think to do it now.
Never.
How many bears have been coming out of those willows towards the train station? Is like lots.
I enjoyed collecting berries along that way.
Oh, yeah.
And you never worried about if
I
a bear
never
was going to
did,
come?
no. When I was young, like I said, when we were younger, we didn't have to worry about polar bears.
Because we used to go all over the place.
Everywhere in those
Up on the
bushes,
rocks.
everywhere.
Yeah, and way down there.
But anyways, we moved to town. We used to take, like in the summer, take a pack of wieners, pack of bread, marshmallows, matches, toilet paper, and go up on the rocks and go way past Erickson's, the Boreal Gardens, way past there, and be there all day and not see one bear.
And be roasting hot dogs.
Swimming in the little pools. We'd be gone all day.
And no parents with you.
No parents.
Yeah.
They knew where we were.
Yeah.
We just had to be home sometime.
We used to run around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We weren't afraid of bears.
I think that was a big difference though when my mom tells stories of her childhood. Like, she would just be all over the town. Like, she tells me stories like walking uptown from the flats, or like running around on the rocks, or staying out like late, just not even caring about bears. Like, it wasn't even a thought in her mind.
We had a whaling factory down the flats. She didn't have bears kicking around there.
The odd one, and he come too
Not
close,
many.
he was gone. Go to look after that one. But that didn't go away. She went to his dogs. They had dogs. Everybody had dogs those days.
Surprising, the whaling plant there stunk. Remember how it used to stink?
Yeah.
And it didn't attract bears, I don't know. But
There was
bears
just
were-
not many, I guess.
Yeah.
My mom would say, "Don't go to the whaling plant," and we'd always say, "Okay." No,
And
we
then you
won't,
go.
we won't. And we go there and we go home and she says, you were at the whaling plant, eh? No, we weren't there. We didn't go there. And then we finally caught on because she would smell our clothes.
It had a very strong smell.
Yep. So if she can smell it after we, make our way home playing and everything, and a bear can smell it from probably across the river.
Yeah.
Especially when the wind blew from that way, it came.
It was smelly.
But even before that, we were younger, and we used to have a beluga motel over there, down a flat.
And they used to capture beluga whales, put them in this big tub, and it was like a zoo. You could come down and see them, and you could touch them, and they had them in this big, and there was hardly, I don't remember bears bothering it.
There was one time I remember when a bear dragged the whale out of that hole.
Oh my!
Out of the pen or the?
Yeah, out of the pen.
Yeah. Because we used to burn our, scrap and garbage in a bin, in a garbage bin.
Yeah, that was a thing down the flats. We
Yeah.
had a big metal bin, and we just put all our garbage in there and Dad
burn
would
it.
burn it up.
Yeah.
So you never had garbage laying around anywhere, and I think they would do it daily, or
Yeah, they
even
would
you
do
couldn't.
it.
We always grew up with the idea that you cannot have garbage
Yeah,
around.
you can't have garbage,
So-
you have to burn it.
One, your uncle John, right? One was attacked when he was hunting, right?
Yep.
And that was, that was, came out of the tent or whatever and startled him. Well, they probably startled
Yeah,
each other.
startled each other.
Yeah, and then the bear just swiped and took his arm, and yeah, so that was, and that didn't happen very often, eh? Right, what happened with Sonny?
He was in a bush or something.
Yeah, they were out setting nets across the river.
Oh, okay.
Probably maybe the same thing. They startled each other because he was in the bushes and the bear was out there.
All of a sudden we heard some commotion and they said there was a bear running. So they came running and then all of a sudden we seen that bear. We didn't know it was a bear, but then my mom was running around gathering everybody up, throwing us in the house. She missed my sister, and my sister was around the corner where the bear was coming.
Oh man.
She ran around there, she just grabbed her and dragged her inside. But everybody, all the elders that were there, they were chasing that bear with their guns.
My first time was, we were playing outside, and it was winter and the river was frozen.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, no, they didn't get excited about, like they didn't tell us, don't go over there because there might be a bear. We just went all over the place. And I remember one time one was coming across the river and the river was frozen, and Mom got all crazy, all yelling and getting us in the house. I think we even got a whack on the head because we weren't fast enough, And she got us all in the house, and she was looking out. We had a little wee tiny window. She was looking out there and worried that the bear would come and bust the window.
But the one earliest memory that sticks out is we were living on Simpson Street. I was a child, and I lived there from 81 till 87, so I would have been like 7 or 8 years old. But I remember one afternoon, it was daylight because I remember the sun being out, and there was a lot of commotion outside, and then all of a sudden there was a lot of commotion in the kitchen, and my mom was all hysterical, and there was a bear literally on the steps right at our door. And so but the neighborhood was already aware, so there was a bunch of like commotion going on outside, and it was darted, and it just kind of laid there right on the step. And I remember once it was tranquilized, we were allowed to go outside and just watching it being handled by the men, put in the back of the truck to be transported to back then, and I still call it to this day the polar bear jail. But yeah, being able to see that bear in the back of the truck and touch it and seeing its size, that is my most favorite memory.
So I was always out on the land and always was running into polar bears, so I don't exactly remember the first time I ran into a polar bear, but my story from when I was a kid, when I was about 12 years old, I remember that my sister worked at the S&M at the Shaggy Bear Shop, and I was at getting my breakfast ready, and my sister had to get up and go to work, so I watched her going out to work, and we had a shed in the back and a honey pit where we dumped the honey bucket, and there was garbage cans there where the garbage men would come and pick up our garbage, and I was watching her walk, and in Churchill, when the wind's blowing from the north, you always walk with your head down, eh? So she was walking with her head down with her hood, and she was walking, looking at her feet, and then all of a sudden this polar bear came out from behind the shed where the garbage was, and I went, oh good, he's gonna eat her. No, I didn't. I was like banging on the window, trying to get her attention to tell her that a polar bear was there, and she was walking up, and she actually bumped into the bear. And then she looked up and seen the bear, and the bear looked at her, and she screamed, and she turned around and ran back in the house. But I think that was the first real polar bear encounter that I ever seen. Eh? But she was pretty shaken when she got in the house, like she was shaking, and she didn't end up going to work that day. She was so traumatized. But the good thing is that she screamed so loud she scared the bear. The bear took off one way, and she took off the other way. But
oh my God,
that was my earliest encounter.
And there was one time my sister Giselle got her allowance, and my mom gave her allowance, and right away she used to go to the steakhouse. So there used to be Bill Sr. had a kind of like a convenient store where the kids used to always go. You could go there with freaking 25 cents and just, whoa, leave there with a ice cream and a whole bunch of candy. So we used to always go, and we were on Fox. So Fox, I don't know if you see in between Button and Tamarack. There's this space there that it looks like there's some, but our house was right behind the town garage. So we were the closest to open area. Plus we had an attraction because of the Shermans. They were just dog lovers, but literally 30, 40 dogs, and they were all over the place. And she would feed them, like go out there and with slop pails and feed them. So it was an attraction for bears to come in there. But so she had her allowance money, and she was going, I was probably maybe 5. So she was 6, 7, 8 years old. So she got all bundled up, and she was going over to the steakhouse with her allowance. And then my mom, I don't know, she said, I don't know, I was just watching her. I used to watch them walk over there just to make sure everything was okay. And then she opened the window in the bedroom to look and see if she was going. And then right beside her, she seen a bear coming. And then she was just like panicking. What do I do? Do I alert her? Get on the phone. She's telling my dad, get on the phone. Phone the steakhouse and tell them to grab her as soon as she walked in that door. And literally my mom was just standing at the window praying. Praying, please don't. Like, she thought of alerting her, but then drawing attention like that is probably not a good idea. So he was probably about from you to the wall, right behind her, walking.
Oh my gosh.
So as soon as she came around the corner, I guess Bill got the message, grabbed her, and he was just like coming around to the steakhouse door. And then of course he just kept her there until Mom could go and retrieve her. I think the only people that are really terrified of bears are the ones that have been in close contact.
Yeah.
Like have had trauma with them.
And actually one time they broke into my neighbor's house, the next house to the left of me, and he stuck his head through the window, and his name's Mark, my neighbor, and he whacked him in the nose with a frying pan. And he ran out.
First thing I was told, you aim for its nose. It's the most tenderest part on its body.
Right under the underpass, they were going this way to daycare, and the bear was coming this way from the church, and it was her and Adam and Aurora, and Adam was like 5. He was in kindergarten, and every morning I'd say, "Good morning, Adam. How are you?" And he'd say, "I'm good, but we just about got eaten by a bear." Because he's always had these stories. I said, "Oh yeah." Later on, I find out that he said, "Yeah, my mom had to hit him in the nose with the backpack, and then he took off." And I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to check with his mom on this one. Sure enough, she comes at lunch. Said, "Adam said you guys met up with a bear?" She goes, "Yeah, I had to hit him in the nose with the backpack." She said it was just an automatic thing. Grab the backpack and whack him over the nose. And then he took off, spun around and took off towards the church again. But lucky thing, hey?
Thank you for listening to episode 2 of the Churchill Storywork Project about Indigenous knowledge of human polar bear coexistence. In episode 3, we will hear stories from the present. Our thanks to the Indigenous knowledge keepers of Churchill who co-created, provided guidance, and contributed throughout this research. Florence Hamilton, Patricia Candrian, Catherine DeMules, and Georgina Oman. This work would not have been possible without the blessing and contributions of additional knowledge holders and elders in the community. Nikki Clace, Dave Daly, Wyatt Daly, Brian Gulick, Jill Larkin, Antonina Candrian, Heather Spence Patello, Michael Spence, Morris Spence, Solly Norman Spence, Leroy Whitmore, and Eva Yassi. Our thanks to the entire community of Churchill for the support of and engagement with this project. Fundamental direction during the initiation of this research was provided by Jeff York, Evan Richardson, and Helen McEwen. Our gratitude to the Polar Bears International team for providing significant logistical and technical support. Once again, my name is KT Miller, and this research was part of my Master's in Interdisciplinary Studies at Royal Roads University. I am so deeply grateful to the many people that made this project possible. Our co-authors on this project include Georgina Berg, the Indigenous Knowledge Keepers of Churchill, Nikia McIver, Dr. Michael Lickers, an Indigenous scholar in residence at Royal Roads University, and Dr. Dominique Henry, a research scientist at Environment and Climate Change Canada. A big thank you to Polar Bears International and Environment and Climate Change Canada for funding this work. More information about this research can be found at churchillpolarbearcoexistence.com.